In the dawn of human civilization, when gods walked among mortals and kings commanded the very stones of the earth, 7 magnificent monuments rose from the ancient world like titans breathing fire into the heavens. These were not mere buildings, but prayers carved in stone, dreams made manifest in marble and bronze, testaments to the boundless ambition of humanity itself. The 7 wonders of the ancient world stand as eternal witnesses to civilizations that dared to touch the realm of the divine. Each wonder tells a story not just of architectural triumph, but of human souls reaching beyond the mortal veil, seeking to create something that would outlast the fleeting breath of life itself. Our journey begins in the shadow of eternity, where the Great Pyramid of Giza pierces the Egyptian sky like a geometric prayer to Ra, the sun god whose golden chariot traverses the heavens each day. Here, in the land where the Nile flows like liquid jade through endless dunes, Pharaoh Khufu commanded the construction of a tomb that would defy time itself. The pyramid rises from the desert floor with mathematical precision that would make the gods themselves pause in wonder. Its base covers 13 acres of sacred ground, each limestone block weighing as much as 15 men, lifted by hands guided by divine inspiration and earthly determination. The ancient Greek historian Herodotus spoke of 100,000 workers laboring for 20 years, their lives dedicated to a single, impossible vision. Within its chambers, secret passages wind like the pathway to the afterlife, leading to the pharaoh's burial chamber, where his mummified form would await resurrection beside the golden bark of Ra. The pyramid's apex once gleamed with polished limestone that caught the first rays of dawn and the last whispers of dusk, turning the entire structure into a beacon visible from the very edge of the world. But the Great Pyramid was not alone in its celestial ambitions. Beyond the Mediterranean waves on the island of Rhodes, where Helios himself was said to make his daily journey across the sky, another wonder would rise to challenge the heavens themselves. The Colossus of Rhodes stood like a bronze titan at the entrance to the island's harbour, his legs straddling the channel where ships would pass beneath his protective gaze. This mighty statue, dedicated to Helios, the sun god, measured 110 feet in height, his bronze skin gleaming like molten gold in the Mediterranean sun. For 56 years, the Colossus watched over Rhodes like a divine guardian, his torch-bearing hand raised toward the heavens as if calling down the blessing of his patron deity. Sailors from distant lands would approach the harbor with reverence, knowing they sailed beneath the protection of a god made manifest in bronze and stone. The statue's creation was itself an act of divine inspiration, forged by the sculptor Chares of Lindos, using bronze melted down from the siege engines left behind by Demetrius Poliorcetes. The defeated weapons of war were transformed into a symbol of peace and protection, a guardian that would watch over the island's prosperity until the earth itself trembled with divine wrath. When a great earthquake shook the foundations of the world in 226 BCE, the Colossus fell, his bronze limbs scattered across the harbor like a fallen titan. Yet even in destruction, the statue retained its power, its broken form becoming a pilgrimage site where travelers would come to touch the fragments of a fallen god. From the sun-blessed islands of Greece, our tale moves to the emerald coast of Asia Minor, where in the city of Ephesus another wonder would rise in honor of the moon goddess Artemis, she who ruled the hunt and protected the wild places of the earth. The Temple of Artemis at Ephesus stood as the largest building in the ancient world, its marble columns rising like a forest of stone trees toward the star-scattered sky. 127 columns supported the temple's roof, each carved with scenes of gods and heroes, their surfaces polished until they reflected the moon's silver light like captured starbeams. Within the temple's sacred interior, the cult statue of Artemis presided over ceremonies that drew pilgrims from every corner of the known world. The goddess was depicted not as the slender huntress of later Greek art, but as a many-breasted mother figure, her form adorned with symbols of fertility and the wild abundance of nature itself. The temple's wealth was legendary, its treasury filled with offerings from kings and commoners alike. Gold and silver vessels lined the sacred chambers, while precious gems sparkled like earthbound constellations in the flickering light of eternal flames. The very air seemed thick with divine presence, as if Artemis herself walked among the marble columns, her silver sandals making no sound on the sacred stones. Yet even this monument to divine feminine power would not escape the fury of mortal ambition. In 356 BCE, on the very night that Alexander the Great drew his first breath, a madman named Herostratus set fire to the temple, seeking immortality through destruction rather than creation. The wooden roof collapsed in a symphony of flame and falling timber, while the goddess herself was said to have been too busy attending Alexander's birth to protect her earthly home. From the ruins of divine temples, our journey carries us to the tomb of a mortal king who dared to build his final resting place as if he were a god himself. In Halicarnassus, Queen Artemisia commanded the construction of a mausoleum for her beloved husband, King Mausolus, that would redefine the very concept of a royal tomb. The mausoleum at Halicarnassus rose in 4 distinct levels, each representing a different aspect of the journey from earth to heaven. The base, built of solid marble, supported a colonnade of 36 columns, above which stood a stepped pyramid, crowned by a 4-horse chariot, carrying the marble likenesses of the royal couple toward eternal glory. The tomb's decorative program was a masterpiece of ancient art, with sculptures by the greatest artists of the age adorning every surface. Marble horses reared as if alive, their nostrils flaring with captured breath, while stone warriors battled across the frieze in scenes that seemed to move in the changing light of day and night. Within the mausoleum's chambers, the bodies of Mausolus and Artemisia lay in golden sarcophagi, surrounded by treasures meant to ease their passage into the afterlife. The very walls were lined with precious stones that caught and reflected the light of oil lamps, creating an otherworldly glow that made the tombs seem like a palace of the gods themselves. The mausoleum stood for over 1,500 years, weathering earthquakes and invasions, until medieval knights dismantled its stones to build a fortress. Yet the word mausoleum itself became immortal, carrying the memory of this wonder into every language, ensuring that the love of Artemisia and Mausolus would echo through eternity. Our tale now turns to a wonder born not of religious devotion or royal vanity, but of human ingenuity reaching toward the stars themselves. On the island of Pharos, at the mouth of Alexandria's harbour, a lighthouse rose that would guide ships safely home, while standing as a testament to the marriage of divine inspiration and mortal craft. The lighthouse of Alexandria stretched toward heaven for 450 feet, its 3-tiered structure rising from a massive square base through an octagonal middle section to a circular crown topped by a statue of Zeus Soter, the savior god who protected sailors from the perils of the wine-dark sea. By day, the lighthouse stood like a marble beacon against the azure sky, its polished stones reflecting the sun's rays across the Mediterranean waters. By night, a great fire burned at its peak, its light focused and magnified by bronze mirrors that could project its saving beam across 30 miles of open ocean. The lighthouse's base contained rooms and chambers that served as both practical quarters for the keepers and sacred spaces dedicated to the gods of the sea. Spiral ramps wound upward through the structure's heart, allowing fuel to be carried to the eternal flame that burned at its crown, while windows at each level offered commanding views of the surrounding waters. Ships approaching Alexandria would see the lighthouse long before the city itself appeared on the horizon, its towering form serving as both navigation aid and symbol of the learning and wisdom that flourished in the great library nearby. The lighthouse stood as proof that human knowledge, guided by divine inspiration, could create marvels that served both practical and spiritual needs. For over 1,500 years, the lighthouse fulfilled its sacred duty, guiding countless vessels safely to harbor until earthquakes finally brought down its towering form. Yet its legacy lived on in every lighthouse that followed, each one a distant descendant of that first great beacon that dared to bring the light of heaven down to earth. From the waters of Alexandria, our journey carries us to the sacred precinct of Olympia, where another wonder rose not as a building, but as a divine presence made manifest in gold and ivory. The statue of Zeus at Olympia stood as the most magnificent representation of the King of Gods ever created by mortal hands. In the inner sanctum of Zeus's temple, the seated figure of the god rose 42 feet toward the coffered ceiling, his throne itself a masterpiece of artistic achievement. Phidias, the greatest sculptor of the age, had crafted the statue's head and hands from lustrous ivory, while the god's robes and ornaments gleamed with sheets of pure gold. The throne upon which Zeus sat was adorned with scenes from mythology, rendered in precious materials and exquisite craftsmanship. Ebony and ivory, gold and precious stones combined to tell the stories of gods and heroes, while the armrests were supported by sphinxes whose enigmatic smiles seemed to hold the secrets of divine wisdom. In Zeus's right hand rested a small figure of Nike, the goddess of victory, while his left hand grasped a scepter crowned with an eagle, the king of birds. The god's face bore an expression of benevolent majesty, his features carved with such skill that visitors reported feeling as if Zeus himself gazed upon them with eyes that held the wisdom of eternity. The statue's presence transformed the temple from a mere building into a living shrine where the divine and mortal worlds touched. Pilgrims who beheld Zeus reported feeling overwhelmed by a sense of awe and reverence, as if they stood in the actual presence of the ruler of Olympus himself. Every 4 years during the Olympic Games, athletes from across the Greek world would come to compete in Zeus's honor, their contests taking place in the shadow of his magnificent temple. The games themselves became a form of worship, each victory a tribute to the god whose golden presence blessed the sacred precinct with divine favor. Our final destination carries us to the ancient city of Babylon, where Queen Semiramis commanded the creation of gardens that would bring the green hills of her homeland to the flat plains of Mesopotamia. The hanging gardens of Babylon rose like a verdant mountain in the heart of the city, their terraced levels creating a paradise that seemed to float above the earth itself. The gardens ascended through multiple levels, each terrace supported by massive stone arches that created cool shadows and hidden grottos below. An ingenious system of pumps and channels carried water from the Euphrates River to the highest level, from where it flowed down through the gardens in streams and waterfalls that filled the air with the music of flowing water. Every level of the gardens showcased different plants and trees, from exotic flowers that perfumed the air with heavenly fragrances to fruit trees that bore sweet offerings to any who walked the shaded paths. Palm trees swayed in the warm breeze, while grapevines created living curtains that filtered the harsh Mesopotamian sun into gentle, green-tinted light. The gardens were designed not merely as a display of royal power, but as a recreation of the mythical Garden of Eden itself, a place where mortals could walk in the company of divine beauty and natural wonder. Visitors described the sensation of climbing through the gardens as ascending toward heaven itself, each level bringing them closer to the realm of the gods. Birds from distant lands made their homes in the garden's branches, their songs creating a symphony that echoed through the terraced levels like the music of paradise itself. The air was sweet with the scent of flowers and the sound of flowing water, while cool breezes carried the fragrances of 100 different plants through the shaded walkways. These 7 wonders stood not merely as monuments to human achievement, but as bridges between the mortal and divine realms, each one a testament to humanity's eternal desire to create something greater than the sum of earthly materials and mortal hands. They represent the highest aspirations of their civilizations, moments when human creativity touched the very essence of the sacred and brought forth marvels that would inspire wonder for countless generations. Though time has claimed 6 of these magnificent monuments, leaving only the Great Pyramid to stand sentinel over the centuries, their memory lives on as proof that humanity has always possessed the divine spark necessary to create wonders. Each wonder tells us that within the heart of every civilization lies the capacity to reach beyond the mundane concerns of daily existence and create something that speaks to the eternal aspects of the human spirit. In an age when gods walked more closely with mortals, when the line between the earthly and divine was gossamer thin, these 7 monuments stood as beacons of human potential. They remind us that true greatness lies not in conquering others, but in creating beauty that lifts the soul and inspires future generations to reach even higher toward the stars. The 7 wonders of the ancient world remain eternal in the realm of human imagination, their stories passed down through the ages like sacred myths. They stand as monuments, not just to the civilizations that built them, but to the timeless human desire to create something worthy of the gods themselves, to leave behind a legacy that transcends the brief span of mortal life and touches the eternal.